Okay, guys, so we're starting off today in the primary bedroom closet. Now, this is what it looked like before. I know I didn't show us actually like ripping any of this out in the primary bedroom makeover, which is not done yet because I need new furniture. But we did take the carpet out of the closet, and I thought maybe I could get away with keeping this system, even though it wasn't well put together, because I wasn't planning on doing the primary closet makeover this soon. But you can see it was really tragically put together. Those are hinges holding up some of the shelves. So I decided that this was going to need a full and complete gut job and makeover. So I started by just removing absolutely everything, which was a little bit harder than anticipated. I really have absolutely no idea why they used hinges to hold these up. But you could see that this MDF board had been just put together a bunch of different weird ways, and it was warping over time because it wasn't properly supported. So all of this did have to go, and it wasn't really reusable. The MDF board was actually a lot heavier than I had initially anticipated, and so you will see me struggling with it here in a moment. But you know what? We got it done, and that's all that matters. There was also that tall piece you can see that goes from the floor to the ceiling and braces this other clothing rod. And it wasn't secured very well, but my camera did die while I took that piece out, so I'm sorry that you won't get to see it. But then it was just time to take everything else off and demo, what was holding up everything. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty frustrating, and I did end up making a few holes in the wall on accident when I was trying to pry everything off because they weren't all nailed into studs, so it was a little confusing. Now, while I demo the rest of this closet, I want to touch on the fact that I haven't been uploading long form videos for a few weeks, and I want to talk about why. First, thank you for sticking in there with me. And if you're still watching this video, even though I have been sporadic the past few months, I appreciate you more than you know. But as you may or may not know, my dad recently passed away, and I've got to be honest with you, grief is not linear. And for a while there, keeping myself ridiculously busy and still posting every single day for my short form content and then once a week for my long form, it did kind of keep me in a good headspace. It gave me something to focus on, but like I said, grief isn't linear, and I for the past few weeks have been struggling with that, and also struggling with a back injury and just all these different things, and I just couldn't bring myself to sit down and edit a YouTube video. And it was easy for me to still try and get out, YouTube shorts and TikToks and Instagram reels. But I couldn't find the motivation that I normally have. And making long form videos is definitely one of the most time and attention intensive things about my job. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know where I was and be open and honest about it, because I know that there are a lot of people struggling with grief, and you're not alone. And I appreciate everybody for sticking by me. Also, during this time, I hit 2 million on TikTok, which was such a huge accomplishment, and that's why I put 2M on the wall in paint. But yeah, I just love you guys, and I appreciate you all sticking by me when I'm in a rough season of life. Okay, well, now that I've just cried a little bit, let's get back to the project. Sorry. Another fun fact, I just deal with grief with dark humor, so, I'll throw that in every now and again. I cut in with my trim brush, and then I started rolling on. I don't usually use a sprayer, especially in confined spaces like this. I'll use a sprayer for larger projects because it is a lot quicker. but in here it's going to go everywhere, and I had just redone the floors. So yeah, we weren't spraying in here. But I used 2 coats of a bright white paint and put that on. Now you might be like, Lexi, what's that big hole in the wall? That's actually plumbing access to our guest bathroom. So there was a panel over it, and I actually was very confused about the configuration of the house and everything. So it was like one of the first things I took off, and I took a video of it, but I don't know where that is now. Anyway, okay. Now, I bought these 2 slim IKEA Billy bookcases. Now, generally, when you see some DIY closet systems, you're going to see people use the pack system. And the pack system is a little bit deeper, and they're usually a lot bigger and wider than this. They're actually out of the pack system, and none of them really fit my closet. I would have had to super customize it, and that was going to be really expensive. So I ended up getting these Billy bookcases because I have small feet, and they fit really great. I got 4, but I ended up only using 2, so I'm going to use the other 2 on another project, but they perfectly fit my shoes, and they also have extensions for the top. So I ended up putting them in the middle of my closet, and that's where my shoes are going to live. Now what I'm doing is measuring out some 1x2s and cutting them to size, and I'm just going to use these to build the frame for my floating shelves. Now previously there were 3 rods for clothing, and then there was like 2 slim shelves that wrapped around the entire thing. Now, for me, I measured everything out, and I spent a lot of time configuring this closet, and I found that I would get the most amount of hanging space because it's a decent sized closet, but I got a lot of clothes. And, Dustin also should have some hanging space for his clothing that's like in our bedroom and not in another closet somewhere else. So I needed one more additional rod, and I thought that it was also kind of a waste of space that the other shelves were so shallow. So I made these fit exactly to size so that no space was wasted and that we could put more on each side. Initially, I was going to do 2 shelves on each side, and then I was like, that doesn't really make sense because I'm not going to have that much space up top. So you will see me, I'm adding some clothes rods to right under this, and I am not putting like a piece of plywood underneath, if that makes sense, to like, so the clothes hangers will still fit. And then I am just going to be adding a rod kind of high up to where actually I can't even reach, but that's okay because you don't wear all of your clothes all year round. So we have our summer stuff or stuff we don't wear super often up on the top rods, and then on the bottom rods is our more day-to-day outfits. But yeah, I had finished everything on the other side, so it was time to build the second frame. Now, building frames for floating shelves is super, super easy. It is literally like 4 or 5 pieces, sometimes 6, depending on how long you want it, of 1x2s cut to size, and then you just use construction screws. It's actually so much more simple than you think it would be. So if I can do this, I promise you can do it too. And then the way that I'm attaching them to the walls is I'm just finding where the studs are, and using those same construction screws, I'm going to drill through the back of the bracket and directly into the stud in the wall. And obviously you want to make sure it's level. It's best to do it with a partner because it's kind of, rough to handle leveling it out and holding it up all by yourself. On the left side of the closet, I did have to provide some extra supports for the bar because the stud was not directly in the middle. I got really lucky on the right side of the closet, and it was. So I was able to just put the bars on, directly to the stud, and they would be secure and be able to hang the weight of my clothes without caving in. But wasn't so lucky on the other side. So on the top and the bottom, I did have to add some extra support, which is really not a big deal. I just used that extra 1x2 that I had, just like the little scraps of it, and I screwed in my piece to a stud so that it was secure, and then went from there. Once I got the clothing rods installed, then I did bring in the Billy bookcases again. I probably shouldn't have brought them in yet though, because they are going to get in the way, and I'll touch more on that in a few minutes. But I got these 2 feet by 4 feet pieces of plywood. They're pre-cut, and it was basically the perfect measurement, except I had to cut a little bit off of the width. And I probably would have just gotten like a big sheet of plywood and had them cut it for me at the hardware store, but their saw was down. So we had to go with a little bit more of an expensive option. And at first I was using my handsaw, and Rick the Brick is helping us hold it down, but that wasn't giving me a very straight cut. And the only reason I didn't use my table saw before was because we can't find the legs for it. Like, they're packed up somewhere and we can't find them. So we just used it on the ground, which I definitely don't recommend doing that, but you know what, we had to work with what we got, and we will find those legs soon. And then I just used my brad nailer to go ahead and attach that plywood to, the 1x2s that was the support under it, and I used some painter's tape to hold on that little front piece. I did bevel the edges, although I didn't get a super clean bevel, so I don't show it, but I did fill everything in with wood filler and then sand it down. And initially I was going to stain these shelves, but I was finding it really hard to find a mixture of stains that would match my floor when I did like test batches, so I do end up just painting them. I am now cutting my lattice trim to make my Billy bookcases look a little bit more custom and built in. We're definitely going to hide that seam between the 2 bookcases, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a few minutes. But I'm cutting it with miter shears. They are super easy to use. Highly recommend them for a multitude of DIY projects, and they're only around $30. I'm going to link those because I always get a lot of questions. And I think the measurement for each one of these shelves was 14 1/4 inch, and then long ways with one additional add-on to the Billy bookcase on the top. I think it was like 93.5 inches, just in case you're wanting to tackle this project and you don't want to measure, because honestly, math is hard, and that's usually the most frustrating part. Anyway, I'm using painter's tape to hold each of these in place, and you can see that the trim is a little bit wider than the actual front of the shelf. And this kind of hides those little pegs underneath each shelf that hold the shelf in place and allow you to move it when you need to. So even though we are doing this, you're still going to be able to relocate the shelves and move them around, but you're not going to see all of those pegs, at least when you're looking at eye level. If you're looking under, you can, but it does make it look a lot more built in. And then I do the shelves first, and then I'm doing those long pieces. So hiding that seam in the middle with this lattice trim was definitely the move. It looks way better, and I think overall I ended up spending like an extra $30, maybe $20 to do this trim, and it made a huge difference. And I'm just using my 23 gauge Airstrike from Ryobi to pop those in. I love it because you don't need an air compressor. And then I swapped out that boob light because it was crusted and busted for a new, more bright light, because it was giving like a haunted closet vibes before. And I'm gonna stop talking now because here are the before and afters.